In a humble, sun-dappled town, inside a shop that smelled faintly of wool and dust, sat a little tailor. He was a small, wiry man with nimble fingers and a spirit far larger than his chest size. On this particular summer morning, he was stitching a pair of velvet trousers, feeling quite hungry.
I have heard your boast.
A peasant woman walked down the street crying, "Good jams! Cheap jams!" The tailor stuck his head out the window. "Up here, my good woman, unload your wares." He bought a quarter of a pound of sweet plum jam. Happy with his purchase, he cut a thick slice of bread, slathered the jam across it, and set it down on his workbench. "I will finish this double stitch before I bite," he told himself virtuously. But the smell of the sweet jam filled the room, reaching the rafters where a host of flies were gathered. Attracted by the scent, they swarmed down in droves. "Who invited you?" the tailor shouted, swatting at them. The flies, understanding no German, refused to leave. Finally, the tailor lost his temper. He grabbed a scrap of cloth and struck the bread. Whack!
1, 2, 7.
When he lifted the cloth, he counted no fewer than 7 flies lying dead, legs stiff in the air. The tailor was struck with admiration for his own prowess. "What a man I am!" he exclaimed. "The whole town must know of this." He hastily cut himself a belt, stitched it up, and embroidered large, bold letters across it in crimson thread. 7 at one blow. The town? He reconsidered, strapping the belt around his waist. No, the whole world shall know.
The whole town must know.
And just as he was leaving, he rescued a bird caught in a bush near his gate, stuffing it into his pocket. With the cheese and the bird, he set off to conquer the world. The tailor walked briskly until he reached a high mountain. There, sitting atop the peak, was a giant, gazing peacefully at the landscape. The tailor marched right up to him. "Good day, comrade. You sit here viewing the world while I am on my way to conquer it. Do you have a mind to go with me?" The giant looked down contemptuously at the little man. "You miserable creature, you bean." "Is that so?" The tailor unbuttoned his coat and showed the giant his belt. The giant read, 7 at one blow. Thinking the tailor had killed 7 men with one strike, the giant felt a twinge of respect. However, he decided to test the little man. He picked up a stone and squeezed it until water dripped from it. "Do that," said the giant, "if you have the strength." "Is that all?" said the tailor. "Play for children." He reached into his pocket, pulled out the soft cheese, and squeezed it until the whey ran out. "There, a little better than stone, wouldn't you say?" The giant didn't know what to say. He picked up a stone and threw it so high that the eye could scarcely follow it. "Now, little duck, do that." "A good throw," admitted the tailor, "but the stone fell back to earth eventually. I will throw one that shall never come back." He reached into his pocket, took the bird, and threw it into the air. The bird, delighted to be free, soared up and away, disappearing into the clouds. "What say you to that, comrade?" asked the tailor. "You can throw," grunted the giant, "but let's see if you can carry." He led the tailor to a mighty oak tree lying felled on the ground. "If you are strong, help me carry this tree out of the forest." "Readily," said the tailor. "You take the trunk on your shoulder, and I will raise the branches and twigs. After all, they are the heaviest part." The giant shouldered the trunk, groaning under the weight. The tailor, however, seated himself comfortably on a branch. The giant, who could not look around, ended up carrying the whole tree and the tailor. "I'm letting it drop," the giant shouted after a while, exhausted. The tailor jumped down quickly, grabbed the branches as if he had been carrying them the whole time, and said, "A big fellow like you, and you can't even carry a tree." They parted ways shortly after, the giant convinced that this small man was a sorcerer or a warrior of immense power. The tailor continued his journey until he arrived at the courtyard of a royal palace. Being tired, he lay down on the grass and fell asleep. While he slept, people gathered around him, reading the inscription on his belt, 7 at 1 blow. "Good heavens," they whispered, "what a great warrior has come here in times of peace. He must be a mighty lord." They ran to the king and told him that if war should break out, this man would be indispensable. The king agreed and sent a messenger to the sleeping man. When the tailor woke and stretched, the messenger offered him a position in the king's army.
By royal decree, the king requests your service against the giants.
"That is exactly what I came," said the tailor. He was given a high rank and a fine dwelling. However, the existing soldiers were terrified of him. "If we quarrel with him, he will strike, and 7 of us will fall at every blow. We cannot stand against him." They went to the king and threatened to resign. "We cannot serve alongside a man who kills 7 at 1 blow." The king was distressed to lose all his faithful servants for the sake of one man, but he was terrified to dismiss the tailor, fearing the little man might kill him and take the throne. He pondered for a long time until he found a solution. He sent for the tailor and said, "As you are so great a warrior, I have a proposal. In a forest in my kingdom live 2 giants who cause great damage with robbery and murder. No one can approach them without risking their life. If you conquer and kill these 2 giants, I will give you my only daughter in marriage and half of my kingdom." "Done," thought the tailor. "A king's daughter and half a kingdom do not come along daily." Aloud he said, "I will tame the giants, and I do not need the 100 horsemen you offered. He who kills 7 at 1 blow need not fear 2.
Stay here. I will go alone.
The tailor entered the forest, leaving the king's horsemen at the edge. He peered through the brambles and saw the 2 giants sleeping under a tree, snoring so hard the branches shook. The tailor filled his pockets with stones and climbed the tree above the sleepers. He slid out onto a limb and dropped a heavy stone on the chest of the first giant. The giant woke up and nudged his companion.
Why are you hitting me? I didn't hit you. You're dreaming.
They went back to sleep. The tailor dropped a stone on the second giant. "What is the meaning of this?" cried the second giant. "Why are you throwing things at me?" "I threw nothing," growled the first.
You did it again! I did nothing.
They argued for a while, but were too tired to fight, so they closed their eyes again. The tailor then chose his biggest stone and threw it with all his might at the first giant's chest. "This is too much!" the giant roared. He sprang up and struck his companion against the tree. The other fought back furiously. In their rage, they pulled up trees by the roots and beat each other until they both fell dead on the ground. The tailor hopped down. "Lucky they didn't uproot the tree I was sitting on," he muttered. He drew his sword and gave each giant a couple of deep thrusts in the chest, then went out to the horsemen.
The deed is done.
"The deed is done," he said, wiping his brow. "It was a hard fight. They tore up trees in their defense, but it is of no use against one who kills 7 at 1 blow." The horsemen rode into the forest and found the giants dead amidst uprooted trees. They looked at the little tailor with wide, fearful eyes. The tailor returned to the king to claim his reward, but the king repented of his promise. He wanted the tailor gone. "Before you receive my daughter," said the king, "you must perform one more heroic deed. A unicorn runs wild in the forest and does great harm. Catch it." "I fear 1 unicorn less than 2 giants," replied the tailor. He went into the forest alone. The unicorn appeared quickly, rushing at the tailor with its horn lowered, intending to spike him. "Softly, softly," said the tailor. He stood still until the beast was nearly upon him, then nimbly dodged behind a tree. The unicorn ran with such force that it rammed its horn deep into the tree trunk and could not pull it out. "Now I have the bird," said the tailor. He came out from behind the tree, put a rope around the beast's neck, and then sawed the horn out of the wood. When he returned, the king was still unwilling to give up his daughter. He made a third demand. "Before the wedding, you must catch the wild boar that lays waste to the forest." "With pleasure," said the tailor. The huntsmen were terrified of the beast, but the tailor went in alone. When the boar saw him, it foamed at the mouth and charged. The tailor ran into a nearby chapel and jumped out the high window at the back. The boar ran in after him, but the tailor ran around to the front and slammed the heavy door shut. The raging beast was trapped, for it was too heavy to jump out the window. The king could no longer find an excuse. With a heavy heart, he gave the tailor his daughter and half his kingdom. The wedding was celebrated with great splendor, but little joy on the part of the royals. Sometime later, the young queen heard her husband talking in his sleep. "Boy, make me the doublet and patch the pantaloons, or I will wrap the yardstick over your ears." She realized then that her husband was no noble warrior, but a common tailor. The next morning, she complained to her father, begging to be rid of him. The king comforted her. "Leave your bedroom door open tonight. My servants will stand outside, and when he falls asleep, they will enter, bind him, and carry him onto a ship to be sent far away." The queen was satisfied, but the tailor's armor-bearer, who liked the little man, heard the plot and warned him. "I'll put a stop to that," said the brave little tailor. That night, he went to bed with his wife. She pretended to be asleep, then rose quietly to open the door. The tailor, who was only feigning sleep, began to cry out in a clear voice,
"Boy, make the doublet, or I'll wrap the yardstick over your ears. I killed S even at one blow.
I have killed 7 at one blow. I have killed 2 giants. I have caught a unicorn and captured a wild boar. And shall I be afraid of those standing outside the door?" When the servants outside heard this, they were seized with a great terror. They fled as if the wild hunt were behind them, and none dared venture near him again. And so, the little tailor remained a king, and he reigned for the rest of his life with the same wit and confidence that had served him from the very first stitch.